understand it's not the worst flood they've had, but clearly Wee Waa is isolated. Clearly there's a lot of water around there. The Premier has announced some relief assistance to the area. I think that that's highly appropriate.
After 40 years of cramped conditions at the old Belmont Library, students and residents rejoiced today as they parted with history. Forming a symbolic bookworm, the crowd wound its way through the streets to the new $1 million library, taking the last of the literary works with them. Looking more like a department store during sale time, the library, which is 8 times larger than the old facility, coped easily with the crowds.
It's a fantastic facility. It brings a new heart to Belmont. It is a wonderful building, wonderful facilities that the public will be able to come along, all of them and use.
Lake Macquarie staff were especially proud, officially recognised as the hardest working librarians in the state, according to a report lodged with Council.
Well, we're very proud of the service. We have a wonderful service here, and it's why we're so highly used. We have a wonderful staff. We loan over 2 million items. There's very few libraries in New South Wales that actually do the same amount of loans as us.
Book numbers have been boosted by 5,000 since the move, and the public now has access to new technologies such as a CD-ROM computer and a self-service checkout system. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
At around 10 o'clock last night, a man believed to be in his mid-20s began talking to the young woman while she waited for a bus. Concerned, she moved on, but he followed her, punched her in the mouth and dragged her away from the road. A passing motorist stopped, but was told by the attacker that everything was okay. He drove away and notified Mayfield Police. Meanwhile, the woman was dragged into a nearby stormwater drain and raped, the attacker fleeing through the campus grounds. The victim caught a taxi to nearby relatives who raised the alarm. Police are searching for a man in his mid-20s with a fair complexion. He was wearing a white T-shirt, dark pants and a blue baseball cap. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Panel beaters in the Hunter region are watching the NRMA trial with more interest than most. If it proves a success, the insurer plans to open other repair distribution centres, including at Newcastle. At present, local repairers claim they win about 75% of the work they quote. Under the NRMA scheme, it will decide who gets the work.
The smash repair industry basically is going to lose all of its client base, and the ability of being able to talk with a repairer and a person who provides services for you from a consumer point of view will be decimated.
However, an NRMA spokesperson says customers will still have the choice of arranging repair work themselves or letting the NRMA do the legwork for them. The GIO already has a similar scheme operating in Newcastle, but the MTA points out the NRMA controls 60% of car insurance in the state and will dominate the market. It also warns the uncertainty over how much work a repairer will win under the NRMA scheme could cost apprentices their jobs.
Being labour intensive, our people spend a lot of time training apprentices up through their 3 to 4 years in the apprenticeship system. That will not be available to them because of this productivity pressure that's being placed on under this new system.
The NRMA says at this stage it's uncertain exactly when it will open a repair distribution centre in Newcastle. Phil Hind, NBN News. Players today pulled on their new jerseys emblazoned with the logo of food service company Monetis. The deal, worth more than $150,000 over the next 3 years, is the most lucrative in the Newcastle League's history. The club is understandably pleased with the support.
It's very hard in the city currently to generate sponsorship. There's so many people out there chasing it. The Knights, basketball, baseball, soccer, everyone's chasing sponsorship.
It's a major boost for the football club with the 1997 NRL season just a matter of weeks away. Wests will go into the competition with 4 new signings in the lineup.
A little bit more impact out wide, plus I think we needed a little bit more versatility in the back row.
Wests have finished runners-up the past 3 years in a row, going down to Lakes by 10 points in last season's decider. The side is predicting 97 will be its year. A pointer to the team's chances will come this weekend when they play Metropolitan Cup holders Newtown.
They normally give us a real good hard run, so if we do beat them this week, it'll show that we're certainly ready for the start of the competition.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
Most people give little thought to the ambulance service until they themselves need medical attention. Today, the tireless efforts of 18 long-serving ambulance officers throughout the Hunter were recognised in an awards ceremony. Among those honoured were Trevor Avery from Curry Curry and Newcastle's Bill Bonner, the 2 longest-serving officers in the Hunter. Both were presented with their second clasp for 35 years of dedicated service.
I am very proud and I've made some very good friends. Mr Bonner and myself have been friends for over 30 years.
Satisfaction that you can help somebody. That's, I think, the bottom line of it. If you can help, well, you're happy too.
Watching from the sidelines, a new generation of probationary officers who will join their more experienced colleagues on the road. The 30 new recruits in the Hunter mean every ambulance will have a 2-man crew, enhancing patient care.
Now with the advent of 2 officers in each vehicle, the patient will receive patient care and transportation to hospital at the same time.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The Breakers spent this morning going over set pieces in preparation for tomorrow night's match. Last weekend's 2-0 away victory over Perth kept the club's slender playoff hopes alive and follows on from an equally impressive win against championship contenders the Brisbane Strikers the week before. As far as coach John Kosmina is concerned, the results are now ancient history.
It won't just happen. You don't just turn up and go out and expect to win again this week. Fine things are on a bit of a roll for us and maybe that will work in our favour. But you can't rely on that.
The players too aren't getting carried away with their giant killing status.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we go and lose to Wollongong this week, well, it's all been in vain to beat the top side, so we have to win again. So the feet are firmly on the ground and we'll hopefully do that this weekend.
Suspensions mean the Breakers go into the Wollongong clash minus striker Clayton Zane and Scotty Thomas, who dominated the midfield against Perth last weekend. As well, the Breakers have to overcome the hoodoo, which hasn't seen them beat the Wolves in 5 years. Kosmina regards the record as a positive, not a negative.
Maybe the Wollongong guys could be thinking that as well, that the odds are a little bit against them. We're due for a win against them.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
An early morning alarm placed university security and firefighters on full alert, but nothing could be done to save the contents of this first floor office in the Hunter building, which bore the full brunt of the blaze.
There is quite a bit of equipment in the room that's been destroyed, and we haven't at this stage been able to identify what that is and therefore what its value might be.
Adjoining offices suffered heat and water damage.
It is quite a frightening scene when you walk into a building that is thick with smoke, because it's a matter for them having to find the seat of the fire.
Firefighters say an electrical fault in a piece of equipment sparked the blaze, ironically the cause of another fire on the campus 2 months ago. That time it was the medical science building which caught alight, destroying valuable research papers in the nutrition department. While medical science lecturers will return to their offices next Monday, the clean-up process in the Hunter building will continue for the next few weeks.
After 14 years at the head of Newcastle's trade union body, Dennis Nichols has decided to call it a day.
Personal commitments that are impacting on that, I've come to the conclusion that it's now the appropriate time to step down.
Mr Nichols says two of the trades hall's vice presidents, both women, are interested in contesting the position. Mr Nichols' colleague and AMWU organiser Mary McGill and Teachers Federation activist Janet McLean are the leading contenders. Neither was available for comment today, but both women are believed to have considerable support.
I've worked very closely with Mary over a number of years now. I know that she's a very, very capable person, and we'll just have to wait and see the outcome of the selection process.
Nominations will close in 2 weeks. If there are 2 or more candidates, a ballot will be held in a month. Simone Cobb, NBN News. Across the nation, university engineering courses are experiencing a general decline in student numbers. The University of Newcastle is no different, with the engineering faculty expecting a 5 to 10% drop in first-year intakes.
It's a strange phenomenon in a sense because the job prospects are and career prospects are so good for engineers.
Adrian Page says the federal government's increase in HECS fees is partly to blame, with new engineering students forced to pay $4,700 a year.
It is a very significant charge for students. Of course, if you think about a student doing typically a 4-year degree, the debt that they incur by the time they finish is quite substantial.
The most noticeable decline has been in chemical engineering. Mr Page believes the problem goes back to high school. The university recently conducted a survey that found a 30% drop over the last 5 years in the number of students studying chemistry for the HSC.
We do need to get that message through to parents and children that the study of maths and science in high school does open up a lot of career prospects both in the engineering and the science areas.
So far, the decline has not meant a drop in the required TER for engineering courses at the university. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
We just saw, well, the bits of windscreen at in the plane, and then bits of bird on the windscreen, and bits of bird in the cockpit and through the plane.
Bales upon bales of superfine wool came under the scrutiny of buyers in Newcastle today in preparation for what may be the city's last sales. Although a final decision hasn't been announced, the Australian Wool Exchange is planning to centralise its operations in Sydney.
At the moment, people are up in arms because of the fact that we won't know till around about the 14th of March whether sales will continue in Newcastle next wool selling season.
Newcastle has a long tradition of being associated with the world's highest grade wool. Determined to continue that relationship, Northwest wool growers are looking at establishing an independent sales group in Newcastle.
We might have support from brokers and also buyers who would be willing to invest their money as well. Because I think the Wool Exchange has got to learn they must facilitate and not dictate.
There is still some hope, however, that a breakaway group won't be necessary. It costs brokers $40,000 a year to rent auction space in the old Wool Exchange building. If a cheaper site could be found, then it may help to persuade the Australian Wool Exchange against moving the sales to Sydney. Meanwhile, tomorrow's wool sales are expected to fetch consistently high prices for growers.
Perhaps reach a peak for the season, and there may be a couple of record prices, but that's not the thing. It's the average of the clip that's the main thing, and the market will be very good.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
I'd say this was a very random. We certainly don't know the motive as yet, and investigations are continuing about it.
Last weekend's giant octopus tragedy looms as a dark cloud over the build-up to the Newcastle show.
We're deeply shocked by the news.
Already the showground is filling with more than 60 attractions which tour the show circuit. Like registering a car, ride operators have annual engineering inspections of their equipment. WorkCover and local council inspectors issue licences and permits once they're presented with all clear certificates.
The checks are done once the particular operator is in the state of New South Wales. The WorkCover people request from the operator the required certificate. Now that might have happened, could happen at a show outside of Newcastle.
WorkCover inspectors routinely check certificates at each show, but rides at Newcastle will come under extra scrutiny tomorrow, short of being stripped down to their nuts and bolts.
We're doing everything possible to ensure public safety and that the public can feel comfortable that everything is being done. I guess too that people can make a choice when they come here. There's so many things to do at a show that, as I said, they don't have to go on a ride if they don't feel sure about it. I hope they don't feel that because of, as I said, all the procedures that are in place.
The original musical Postcards was brought to life for the first time today by more than 70 budding performers. Frustrated by a lack of suitable musicals and eager to involve as many students as possible, the Hunter Christian School decided to create its own production.
When you put on a school musical, you need to think about getting kids across the stage, giving as many students as possible an experience in theatre. So we have to have something that has a large cast, something that allows us to use varieties of skills, dancers, jugglers, singers.
Written and directed by Steve Taylor, an English teacher, the story centres around the character Jason Reynolds. The young man embarks on a journey through time as he reads old postcards left to him by his grandfather. Although the music is not original, well-known contemporary songs are performed by 16 soloists, which tie in with the themes.
Material possessions aren't important, it's relationships and people that really count, and that's the main thrust of postcards.
With 3 of the 6 performances at Newcastle City Hall almost sold out, it's hoped other high schools will perform the musical. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
It's meant to be a bit...
They're predicting it will be their most successful season in the NBL, but while they're all tall, that's about where the similarities stop. Some are experienced, others are the up-and-comers of the game, some have been with Newcastle for years, others are new, while some have returned. The Falcons are hedging a lot of their chances in 97 on what they call the 4 young talented big men, Scott McGregor, Matty Lowe and the 2 Big Bens, Pepper and Melmoth.
It's no longer Butcher's team or my team. It's definitely, you know, they're the wave of the future, and we're very happy to have them in the team.
Jensen himself is a welcome addition, returning after a stint with the North Melbourne Giants. The 195-centimetre guard last year represented Australia at the Olympics.
The Boomers has become a very steadying influence on me. I got a chance to play against some top-level players over in the Olympics, and I'm now hoping that some of that might be able to rub off on some of the younger players in the Falcons team.
Also new to the team, second import David Simmons and Sydney rookie Greg Blake.
Every day at training with Butch and Tony, you can't do anything but learn from those guys. You know, they've been great players for years, and I just hope to pick up some things as I go along this year.
The Falcons are yet to sign the 10th player for the roster. They're searching for a backup guard for captain Butch Hayes. The side plays Sydney in a trial at the Central Coast this weekend before its first official match in the NBL Cup on March 7.
For collieries throughout the Hunter, rail is proving to be an attractive transport option. The United Colliery at Jerry's Plains is the latest to join the trend. The state government today announcing its support for a new train line and loading facility.
I think there is this growing demand right across the state, right across the country, to get a shift of freight back from road onto rail. This is a great step forward in that direction.
Under the deal, United Colliery will build a $20 million terminal. The state government's Rail Access Corporation to provide $30 million for a 16-kilometre rail link for United Colliery and Wombo, an extension to the main Hunter Valley coal freight line.
The extra traffic which it can gain from trains running on that line will repay their investment. So it's a totally commercial operation.
With 300 trucks required to move the same amount of coal as one fully laden train, the proposed line is expected to keep 150,000 truck movements off local roads.
The company were alerted that once the amount of coal produced along our roads exceeded 7 million tonnes, there was a requirement, an obligation to build a railway line, and that's what's happening now.
An environmental impact statement is now underway, and once this is completed, tenders will be called. The railway line and coal loading facilities are expected to be operational by mid-next year. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News. The storm that ravaged Singleton 2 months ago hit hard and fast. Hailstones the size of golf balls shattering buildings and damaging hundreds of homes. After the initial shock, the long and messy process of cleaning up.
There's a lot of work to be done with the window systems in some, as I said, in some of our lovely historic homes which had these imported windows, and we're trying to get those back to what they were. That's where the problem's going to be.
In his first visit to Singleton as Premier, Bob Carr congratulated those involved in the clean-up. One by one, awards were presented to SES and fire brigade units from throughout the region. A small thank you for a mammoth task. Today's gathering just a representation of the thousands who've helped restore the battered and bruised town.
I'd describe them as local heroes. They got here fast. There's a risk to their own lives. You never have a crisis like this where you're not in some danger of your life.
An emergency relief fund set up to help families has fallen short of its target, but Singleton Council is still confident they'll raise $250,000.
We'll get there, and when we get there, Sarah will be a better community. I have no doubt about that at all.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
It is very disturbing, particularly that time of day, particularly the nature of the offence. It's something that we haven't had a previous sort of occurrence of, thank heavens, and something we'd certainly like to be able to clear up.
Great Lakes Council is facing a crisis blamed for the outbreak of hepatitis A, which has killed one man and left more than 400 infected in 3 states. Most ate oysters from Wallace Lake, and it's believed they may have been contaminated by sewage. If that's found to be the case, then Environment Minister Pam Allen says Great Lakes Council is in serious trouble.
This certainly points to gross negligence by the Great Lakes Shire Council in its operations of its sewage and septic systems.
Ms Allen claims the council was ordered 3 months ago by the EPA to close 2 sanitary depots which fed into Wallace Lake, but she says they failed to do so.
Is the council at fault like they're claiming you are?
Certainly not. Certainly not. Totally refute that.
Mayor John Chadban chaired an emergency meeting at Foster this afternoon to discuss the situation. He says council will continue to carry out tests on 4 possible sources of contamination, including the 2 sanitary depots. He believes the Environment Minister is overreacting. Ms Allen, however, says the council faces prosecution by the EPA, and then there's the possible court action by those affected with the disease, with a Melbourne law firm confirming it's considering a class action on their behalf.
The crowd told the story, well down on previous years, despite the club boasting a top-rate program.
Well, we've got, mostly all of the top jockeys, certainly in New South Wales, no question about that. And of course, the people will bet on, the top jockeys.
The Newcastle Jockey Club is so concerned it's considering breaking up the two-day carnival. If the plan goes ahead, it would end the decade-long tradition of running the Coca-Cola Classic and the Newmarket on consecutive days.
What we may have to look at is maybe, say, running the Coca-Cola like today on a Wednesday, and then maybe in 2 weeks' time the Newmarket on a Thursday. It may be that we split the carnival up.
The club says the two-day spring carnival will stay the same. The people who did go to the track were treated to a great day of racing. The feature, of course, the Classic for 2-year-olds over 1,200 metres. A strong win by Decide. It paid $7.30 and $2.40. The favourite paid $1.40 for the place, Tricove $3.50. The trifecta $213.90. Meanwhile, tomorrow's feature, the Newmarket Handicap, is a wide-open affair following the scratching of shame. Sprint By and Monet's Cove share favouritism at 6-1. Gary Harley likes number 11, with Buzz Off and Secret Savings also expected to run boldly. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Just after 4:30 this afternoon, a man in his 20s entered the Mulberry General Store. Police say he threatened the 65-year-old with a knife, demanding money. Arming himself with a pick handle, the shopkeeper fought back, only to be stabbed several times around the upper body and head.
It certainly appears, just from the initial looks of things, that there's been quite some struggle put up by the storekeeper.
His attacker fled, possibly in the company of others, in a 1980s model Red Falcon sedan.
There has been incidents where thieves have been frightened off by storekeepers, but this is the unfortunate side of it, where a storekeeper does try to fight off an armed robber, and what we don't like to happen has happened, and he's received a number of stab wounds.
The shopkeeper was found gasping in a pool of blood by a resident. He was treated by an off-duty nurse before help arrived. The shopkeeper was treated by paramedics and flown by Newcastle's Westpac Rescue helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital, where he is in a serious condition. It's not known whether anything was stolen during the attack. Andrew Lobb, NBN News, Late Edition.
Great Lakes Mayor John Chadband hit back at ministerial claims the council had been grossly negligent at its sanitary depots at Falford and Green Point. At a crisis meeting yesterday, it was revealed the source of the contamination was from the Willamba River, not the depots.
So we've not really placed any importance in this site at all. Unfortunately, others have, and I'm sure that they've done that for their own particular reasons rather than real concerns about the current issue. What I can only be concerned with, on behalf of this community, is solving this riddle.
Member for Mile Lakes John Turner has also criticised the Environment Minister Pam Allen for closing the lake.
This overreaction of closing the lake, it's just crazy. The Department of Health have given a report to the Minister for Health saying there is no need under the National Health and Research Guidelines to close this lake to swimming.
So far, the council has not received a directive to close the lake. Meanwhile, Wallace Lake oyster growers continue to suspend sales until the scare is over.
We're looking at not harvesting for the rest of this season. It just depends on how quick we can get an evaluation of the problem and get it rectified.
Great Lakes Council still believe they have not pinpointed the source of the contamination and will continue extensive testing. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.